Hi everyone, my name is Srividya and I'm here to present a session for the product school today. A little bit about myself. I'm actually been in product management for over 20 years now, and you can see the companies that I've worked with, where I have either been in more of a consulting role or actually been in the on the product side. The domains that I worked with primarily are the fraud, payments, risk, and also some back office applications and payment operations. And I'm happy to be here and start talking about a topic that not many product managers get into or discuss that. So let me go ahead and open it up. Before I get into the session, I just wanted to make sure that we call out what a product manager is and what their responsibilities are in an organization, and why some of the heavy decision making really falls within the product organization. So the product manager is really responsible for defining the why, the when, and the what of the product. And they essentially are the glue to a lot of the cross-functional teams and how exactly a product interacts with different teams within an organization. They provide the deep product expertise and bring the market awareness of what a product should look like and why a product should behave in a certain way, and what are some of the competitive advantages of building a product for customers. This is where the product manager is key for laying out the product vision and how it can differentiate itself based on how it can meet some of the customer demands. And the role itself can go from more strategic to tactical. Product managers typically wear a lot of hats, and they're trying to influence other people, other organizations within the company to get things done. But like I said, they essentially are working in tandem with engineering, marketing, sales, and the support teams to ensure that the product is understood and the product value is conveyed in the right way, the product pricing is done in the right way. So these are some of the things that I wanted to call out as far as a product manager role. So the topic for today is the key considerations for the buy versus build decision. What are some of the pros and cons of going either way? And really trying to see how product managers can make an informed decision when it comes to choosing between a buy versus build, or even sometimes a hybrid option, which may work for certain situations. There is a decision framework that I have put in the slides over here. It's really inspired by one other webinar that I saw, where I saw how they came up with the decision on buying a great data product. So I just wanted to I've leveraged that to see how I can come up with a similar framework, but more in a more generic way. So what are some of the triggers that get you to think about a buy versus build decision? Typically, when customers are asking for a feature or they need certain capabilities which are not there in your existing product, product managers or the company decision makers typically start looking at the outside landscape to see what other solutions can complement their existing solutions. When you start seeing a repeated demand for certain products or functionalities, that's a good signal to look at and see how you can extend your product solution to other capabilities. Some customers won't sign a deal without having a certain functionality. Those are the deal breakers, and essentially those are the ones that sales is screaming about and saying that without this, the customer will not move forward. And that's when you have to start thinking about how quickly you can turn around and provide a solution on a particular ask. The next trigger is really the competition. The competition may have decided to go ahead and get some partnerships in place and extend their value offering, which makes them more attractive in the market. And those are things that within your company, your leadership is looking at and thinking, why can't we have the same partnerships, or why can't we extend our product portfolio to give a better value offering to our customers? The fourth trigger is really all about revenue, but to see how best you can you can grow your revenue, and it's more of a strategic thinking or a decisioning on the company side to think about by adding new extensions to the product or to by putting new partnerships in place, how can they increase revenue overall. The other trigger which comes into play is really whether to extend the products if you have the skills and competency, or is it going to be a steep learning curve to actually build a certain add-on feature or add a new product into the portfolio. That becomes a key trigger or a consideration to look at what is should we be buying versus building a product. Some key considerations that I have put laid out over here. Essentially, the speed to build. So, should you go with a build decision? What is the resource availability? And even if there are resource available, how long can they be put on a particular project or on a product, more from a dedicated capacity? More than that, how long will it take to actually build the product? So more on the table stakes features, and whether by building the product in house, can you actually meet some of the table stakes and keep up with the pace on the delighters? So what I mean by delighters is really the wow features that your competitor or some of the other vendor solutions may already have it out there, and when you start building the solution in house, you can barely keep up the pace to just get to the table stakes. So those are things that you may want to think about. A big decision maker or decision point here is really the vendor. Should you think of buying a solution, which vendor you need to go forward with, and how do they fit in within your ecosystem? How does the integration look like? More so on the vendor themselves, what is the longevity of their product? What is the longevity of the company? Are they financially viable? Is this a long-term relationship or partnership that you can have with them? Or is it, so are they sustainable, and can they hold on their own? These are some things that you may want to look at when you're choosing a vendor. The integration cost, how expensive would it be to actually integrate an outside solution into your system? And also, what does it mean for your customers when they are using your products or your value offering? What do they need to do when you have an outside solution in the mix? The technology compatibility is another big consideration to look at. What is it? How is it? How compatible is the outside product or solution? How can you bring it into your ecosystem, or how do the two systems? How is the handshake between the two systems, and how is the data getting passed between each other, or how will it get installed within a customer's environment, or on the cloud, and how is it going to be accessed? The value versus cost, you have to keep in mind when you're building a solution or even buying a solution. What is the cost? Is it an ongoing cost? Is it a one-time cost? Would your customers be willing to pay the price point? And would you be able to make a profit when you end up making a buy versus a build decision? So these are some things that you need to look into in a more thoughtful and in a detailed way to think about what decision you need to finally come into. Here's a table to just talk through when to build and when to buy. These are situations that can actually go on both sides, and but this is more of a guidance to think about and say, if 3 or 4 of these meet your situation, then maybe the right decision is to either build or to buy. So on the build side, if you are thinking of buying a solution, but building is actually is less expensive, then that might be the way to go by looking at the cost of the different vendors and also trying to see how that might cost to your customers and whether this product will actually sell. You may end up looking at a more of a build decision. And the build decision actually becomes easier once you are well aware that this is a technology or a skill that is already available in-house within your team, within your engineering team, and your infrastructure can support that technology, then that build decision becomes a little easier. What you also need to make sure is that the cost of the building the solution, and try you don't end up incurring so much of a cost that you don't that you cannot charge your customers as much. Usually in a build solution, that doesn't happen much. It's usually less expensive once you have the resources in house and the technology and the infrastructure and the hardware. Then it's more or less okay to build it and not have the customers incur so much of the cost. And also you're in control, so it's usually okay. When you want to minimize the vendor risk, so the things that we talked about from a vendor perspective, whether they have the longevity on the product, whether they have a good financial plan to sustain over the next few years. And there are things that you may want to think about as to what happens when the vendor gets acquired, how it might impact your business or your company or your customers. Those are some things that get minimized when you choose to build. On the other hand, when to buy, on the buy decision, when you have factors, the factors that you take into consideration is really the time to market. When you have customers who are waiting for this functionality, or when you want to meet really aggressive goals, you may choose to go the buy direction. Once you're aware of the market and once you're aware of the types of solutions out there, you can look at what are some of the table stakes amongst the vendor solutions, and what you may end up building may not necessarily be the delighters, but just table stakes. Also to think about is if the complexity of what you're building is going to be way too much than what you can handle, then it's probably buying a solution is probably the better idea. If you have a legacy infrastructure and you're trying to retrofit a cloud solution or the latest technology advanced solution into your ecosystem, that may not necessarily be a good decision. So you keep the two infrastructures in their own environments, and you can still provide the value offering. That's when you choose to buy. And when to choose a buy, it's really based on your business strategy and your company strategy. You may want to think about as to what your core competency is, and whether when by actually buying the solution, you're extending the expertise of your overall product portfolio or your company branding into newer solutions. So that's when you essentially give more of a one stop service to your customers, and you end up choosing to partner or buy with a outside solution. So this is a quick look at the decision framework. What I have here is a matrix of low risk and low to high risk parameters. And then on the left hand side, it's really the two big considerations that will influence your decision. One is more on the resource availability and also having more of the dedicated capacity, whether that is available to you or not. The second is by choosing to build versus buy, how are you disrupting the status quo or the competition? Whether you have the high confidence and the high capability to introduce differentiators in your decision to build. The ongoing effort is also a factor here, to look at whether something is needed on an ongoing basis, or new features or new enhancements. Sometimes if it's a compliance product, you have to think about new regulations, new rules that may come about that may require constant fixing of the product and constant development against the product. The alignment itself is very important to make sure that the product that you're building or buying is completely aligned with your overall business strategy. A couple of examples here on whether how the risk rating would work. It's really your low risk is a rating of 1, medium is 3, and a high is a rating of 5. In this case, I've tried to look at an example where I'm trying to essentially buy a solution from the outside. So if I look at this, the high risk, so basically the situation would be that you're trying to introduce a new product in your portfolio or extending your current product, but you don't have any resources available, so that makes it a risk rating of 5. You don't have the confidence or the capabilities to build a differentiated solution, so that again makes it a 5. The ongoing effort is way too high, so or is absolutely needed, which makes it a rating of a 3. And then completely aligned with the overall business strategy, that makes it a 1. So overall, the score is 42 points over here, which is on the higher side. The second example is more of a build decision, and I'll explain how. The rating over here is more about the speed to market. In this case, you absolutely know that you have the resources in-house. You also have the high confidence that you can build it in-house. The ongoing effort, there's not much of an effort. It's a one-time build, or maybe a few enhancements here and there. And it's completely aligned with the overall business strategy. That makes it a total score of 14 points. I've also rated some of the importance over here. So basically, the formula here is really the risk rating times the importance gives you that score against each of these factors, and then you total it up, which will give you the total score. So in terms of the bucketing of each of these score ranges, what I have here is a 0 to 20 is on the low risk, where if it's a low risk, then you end up building that particular solution. Whereas if it is a 21 to 40 points, you can think of it as a medium risk range. You can also think of it as maybe a combination strategy may work, where you build part of it and you partner with the solution to build to combine it together to build a solution. The 41 to 60 points is high risk, so you end up buying or partnering on that particular solution, which will help you gain that market traction that you need to provide a completely differentiated value offering. So, having said all that, some things to remember is that the building versus buy decision is not necessarily a easy one to make. You need a lot of information to actually think about and make an informed decision. What you need is not necessarily a best decision. What you need is more of a good informed decision to say, yes, you can take that step. But what you also need to make sure is that when you take a decision, you need to be able to be in a position to revert if there is a need to revert. So in cases of when a vendor goes bad or when a vendor is not sustainable, you may want to think about a new strategy or a replacement strategy with another vendor immediately, so that you don't lose the traction and you don't lose the market share. So you continue to go down the path of a buy, but you need to make sure that you are aware that one particular vendor may not work, and you have some backups ready to make sure that you can switch, or you build a more of a vendor agnostic solution, so you can actually have a more plug and play kind of a solution. That was my presentation. I thank all of you for listening in and participating in this session. What I have as a closing slide is also some recommended reading or some recommendations on the books that I feel have really helped me in my product management journey. And I hope that once you get to read these books, they also help you in your journey. Thank you all. Thanks for your time.